Hello everyone and welcome to Stronghold Definitive Edition with me, the Doctor.
Me, the Sprite.
And I, the Bard.
So I'm in the driving seat for this one and we're going to get on with the main campaign. I know this game extremely well. I don't believe the two of you have ever seen anything of this.
Absolutely not, but I'm very excited. So I understand it's broadly a kind of medieval combat RTS, build units and fight sort of game.
Yes. I'd say Dawn of War is a good comparison, but compared to Dawn of War, the combat is perhaps a little less important and the economic side of it is a bit more important. But we'll get to that. We're going to do the campaign, which slowly builds up. We are here starting off in Cornwall, and there are 4 enemy territories, and we'll learn who these people are shortly. The Rat's Kingdom, the Snake's Domain, the Lands of the Pig, and the Wolf's Lair. So we'll start on Mission 1, Gathering the Lost.
Can I just say at the onset, I am incredibly excited for this. I mean, as you will know by now, viewership, I fucking love medieval history, and I can't wait to talk through this game.
I forgot that it actually gives you the background of the plot. Excellent.
Yeah.
Only gives you the plot if you shush and listen to it.
Oh, I'll put on the screen now. If people want to skip straight to the first mission, because this cutscene is quite long, there's a timestamp.
So, when is this actually set? Does it take place in a particular period in history, or is it left to the viewer's imagination?
It's kind of just before 1066.
Okay.
Time does pass during the game, but it means nothing. Like, you can happily go through or pre or post 1066, and it doesn't make a difference at all.
Okay.
But it's basically that kind of period.
But we are situated 1060, for example.
Something like that, yeah. Well, we'll see when we actually get to the first level.
Sir Longarm. You can tell, the Doctor was telling me this off camera, viewership, because I know literally nothing about this game, but you can tell this is a remaster of a game from 2003.
Yeah, these visuals were so fucking cool in the day. It had a really cool system whereby you could design a castle and design its defences, then save it onto a floppy disk and send it to a friend who would then attempt to besiege the castle, and then they tell you their time. It was very.
That's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Can we do that in the map editor? Like, you could build a castle on the map editor, and then I could attack it. Okay.
Yep. Or you could try defending it, because basically there's a type of mission you can do that's called a siege, where there's just a pre-built castle, and you have a certain number of troops to either attack or defend it. It's a lot of fun. There's some of them in the campaign, but not a lot. So, our father has been attacked in a barbarian raid, the king has been captured, and 4 of his definitely trustworthy bannermen have partitioned the kingdom among themselves. So we start here with our first taste of leadership.
Story of my life.
I actually do like that the game focuses on siege warfare, because so much of medieval warfare is sieges. The notion of, we'll talk about this as we get through the game, but the notion of 2 waves of human beings crashing together in blood and thunder and steel is almost never happens. It's like a once in a generation event.
It's what this does really well with having the economic side of it, is the fact that you can just starve someone out by targeting their production and whatnot, and you can also make yourself harder to besiege by putting your production inside your castle and enclosing it in your walls and protecting it that way.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing here, this is the keep, this is our Saxon Hall is the centre, this is us, the Lord, wandering around. The granary contains our food, and the stockpile here contains all our resources. We have a woodcutter here who's gone out and cut a tree, and he is currently carving that up into planks. You'll notice he's doing a little animation there. Once he has cut 3 planks, he will get out of his little hut, and he'll wander over to the stockpile. Once he places that wood on the stockpile, we have 17 at the moment.
Animal tracks have been reported in the area, sire.
We get a little bit of wood that way. I've also built a hunter's post up there, and the hunter will go and hunt some deer. We can see them moving around and things like that, and he's currently butchering it, and he will take it to the granary when we're done. As you see, the granary has 8 units of food, which is 5 months. There you go. Apparently we do start in 1066, for all that it matters. There's no Normans or anything in this.
Oh, okay, so we are explicitly a Saxon lord living in the time of, let me get this right, Harold Godwinson is the man who's on the throne of England in 1066, prior to September.
So our goal for now is literally just to acquire wood and meat, because we're just building provisions and getting used to it. So this is what
Waggles eyebrows.
Yes. So this is a very small mission. As you see, it let me cite my keep in the middle, but as you can see, this is, wow. on one of the nice things about the remastered edition is this used to be your only level of zoom, whereas now you can actually see on this level, which on a modern monitor works a lot nicer.
Doctor, I'm beginning to see why we get on so well. This is basically Caesar and Dungeon Keeper smooshed together.
And a bit of kind of Civ, all those kind of things, yeah.
At first glance, like, I'm really enjoying the art style. Like, I like kind of how it looks sort of like a tapestry that moves.
Yeah, I like the way you've got like the menu down there that's all like a tapestry and stuff. It is quite nice. And
That's
yeah,
a scroll, not a tapestry.
there we go. Oh, someone was like, to see if either of you can lend anything to this. Someone at a podcast I was listening to the other day went on a big. Well, he specifically said, I'm not going to go on a rant, and I wanted to go on a rant about how apparently the Bayard tapestry isn't actually a tapestry. It's a woven something.
So that I can come in on this. So the Bayard tapestry, which is a weaving, I believe it's a different technique separate from a tapestry, and it's way, way bigger than a tapestry because it's meant to be viewed horizontally rather than vertically. And
that might be it, yeah.
And furthermore, it wasn't actually made in Bayeux. That's just where it is housed or was housed. I've seen the Bayeux tapestry. It's got to be kept in a slightly darkened room.
I've seen it years ago, but I don't remember it.
Well, apparently it's got to be kept in this darkened room so that the light from any lamps or the sun doesn't damage the pigment of the tapestry.
I remember, so the Stag used to work for the National Trust for Scotland in like conservation-y stuff, and he basically I remember him talking about their conservation measures once, and he basically said it's just all about light. It's all about filtering light, keeping things in the dark, or with like special glass to filter out UV and things like that. Light is the enemy of conservation.
Yeah.
We should talk about, like, for our international audience, the Bayeux tapestry is basically a large, it's gigantic actually, I think it's like 10 meters or more long, but it's huge. It's like a big horizontal tapestry or wall hanging, basically, that depicts the Norman conquest of England, basically. So, arguably the most important date in medieval English history, or maybe the most important date in world history, given what the nation of England would go on to do, is the Battle of Hastings in 1066, and the Bayeux tapestry is a more or less contemporaneous weaving that depicts that battle.
Do you want to know my favourite fact about the Battle of Hastings?
Go on.
Didn't happen in Hastings. Happened in a nearby place, which is now a modern-day town called Battle. Named after the battle that happened there. I like that a battle is significant enough that you can just call a town Battle after it.
I mean, like, there are people who legitimately argue that the Norman conquest of England, which immediately follows the Battle of Hastings, is the most important event to happen in Western world history. I think
Western world history? British history, maybe, but...
Bart, excuse me, the Sprite was born?
In 1066? No, you weren't.
No, but that's the most important thing in history. Sorry, go on.
I mean, you could argue that perhaps no other force in the modern world had a greater role in shaping world politics than the British Empire, and it's inconceivable to think of the British Empire emerging out of anything other than a united Britain as conquered by the Normans in 1066.
I think the French and the Dutch did pretty fucking well shaping everything themselves.
I would concur, Sprite, but like so the argument goes, right? As a proud Scotsman, I'm loath to give the English credit for anything.
On that, I heard the best thing ever recently. Britishness is the enforcement of Englishness on the Welsh, the Scots, and the Irish.
Chin, Sprite.
See, this is the advantage of this compared to what you've been doing recently with like Batman and Prince of Persia. I mean, you can just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Get bevved. Insult people for once.
And talk history, like, so... Not as research for this like show viewership, but like this year I've been getting into a bunch of like medieval war games. I've been reading a whole bunch about the Crusades and about the Viking Age, and specifically about the Norman conquest of England. So I know quite a bit about the year 1066 and the circumstances that surrounded it and how they fought and how they lived. So I'm really looking forward to talking about all this.
So, just a brief summary of the plot there. We got some food and provisions, and then it became account that we'd actually pitched our camp directly in the middle of the wolves' migration track, because we're a wet behind the ears new commander. So we have moved into an abandoned stockade and need to, as quickly as possible, gather a few more provisions and finish off the castle.
So this is actually a really big deal. That there is a misconception that in the Middle Ages, or certainly in the medieval period in general, that all the fortifications were made out of stone. And it's a complete and utter fallacy.
It was almost always wood.
Yeah.
Or a big mound.
Exactly. The majority of Norman fortifications, which immediately follow the Saxon period from 1066 onward, tend to be like a big mound of earth with a wooden palisade around it and then a wooden central hall in the middle.
So basically like a Motte and Bailey kind of thing.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
We'll get to that, don't worry. There's Mottes and Baileys for days in this, yeah.
I'm so looking forward to it. Most of the stone constructions that you would have seen in Saxon Britain, which is where we are in the year 1066, most of the kind of stone constructions would be Roman ruins that they were kind of propping up, or there would be Roman brickwork and Roman masonry plundered from things like the Antonine Wall or old Roman fortresses.
There's a brilliant book, which I think if you haven't read it, I think you particularly appreciate, Bard. It's called The Time Traveller's Guide to the 14th Century, which basically treats it as like a kind of like travel book of like, you know, what would you need to go do if you were going to holiday there or whatnot, like about the food and the culture and the language and that kind of thing. But it opens with a brilliant passage describing a traveller coming into medieval, like 14th century, I think it's Exeter or somewhere like that. And he basically says, the first thing you would notice is the cathedral. It's one of very few stone buildings you've ever seen in your life, and it's 100 times bigger and taller than anything you've ever seen. Like, it's like we can't understate the impact of seeing a gigantic stone building in that case. And that's a cathedral. They are supposed to be
big, imposing, and scary.
Exactly, yeah. The whole point of them is to get that holy shit effect, basically.
I think you'll find the awe-inspiring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, didn't awesome used to be negative?
Not negative per se, but awesome and awful have the same root, and it's that sudden, like, not quite piss yourself, but the absolute gut wrench of, oh my fucking Christ.
Yeah. So I'm just back from a long weekend in Rome, and like seeing some of the stuff that the ancient Romans were able to produce at a time when the people of Britain, the Angles, the Saxons, the Britons, whoever it was, like we're literally living in mud huts versus like soaring marble columns that the Romans had.
Just so we're clear, mud huts are very sensible for our climate.
But they're not. It's not like a columned temple or anything like that, Sprite. You would agree.
I agree, but you know, I don't want a glamorous frock every time I want to go out into the garden, you know?
Oh, fair enough. I take your point. So
medieval medieval idea of like what the Romans were like must have been wild. It's like there are just these ruins around that are just, you know, beyond anything that anyone nowadays has got like the skill to construct. Nowadays being, you know, your average medieval person.
Yeah.
Bard,
Sorry, Sprite, you go.
Have you read the Warlord Chronicles yet?
No, but you keep recommending to me. This is the vaguely King Arthur-y one, right?
It's definitely King Arthur, and that covers a lot of like post-Roman England dealing with the Roman buildings and the Roman like hangovers and stuff. But never mind.
That kind of legacy.
We're going to talk about this right now, Sprite, because I'd rather get this argument out of the way. But like, I listened to a podcast recently where they talked about the Roman withdrawal from Britain as being like, we just as a modern people cannot conceive how catastrophic this would have been. It's like waking up one morning and discovering that like the internet doesn't work anymore. Like, you know, all the aqueducts are broken and no one knows how to build more aqueducts. Like you're missing clean water, medicine, etc.
Yeah.
It's an unthinkable cultural shift that we just cannot really conceive of in the modern age. But do we want to talk about King Arthur, who's obviously like a mythological figure, whereas we are firmly in the time of recorded history in 1066 when this game is set. But do you want to talk about Arthur and get that out of the way?
Oh, we'll get there, don't worry. Give it time. For now, also, the viewer will be able to hear some of the incredible voice acting. Oh, sorry, that hunter's going to have a bad time.
Oh.
Yeah, no, we're fine. He made it in, it's okay. But yeah, we have 4 archers up here, and one of my favourite things about this game is every unit has a different British regional accent. Archers are Geordie.
My boy's yours.
That's amazing. Can you get... I've got some mechanical questions about the gameplay, Doctor. So
absolutely.
Do those archers come with... When you build a gatehouse, they come baked in?
No, they just came baked into this scenario. We're not able to create units yet. They're just basically... This is the ruins of an old stockade that had like a few troops loyal to our father kicking around as a garrison.
Stocks are dwindling,
I understand. I hear the food stocks are dwindling. You ought to do something about that.
Yeah, our goal is to get... right, so there's a bit of a trade-off, and I think I've done it badly, of where you put the hunter's post. Here, we've got the hunters' posts in the castle, basically, because so the hunters are going out, getting the kills, then they're bringing them back in to butcher them and then take them to the granary. Obviously, if you put the hunters' posts out in the wild, it means it's easier for them to get the kill to the post, but then they have to do more kind of carrying after the butchery. And I just wanted to have them inside so that if the wolves come, which they have been doing occasionally, we can just lock down and everything is safe within the castle.
I have a follow-up. Have you been building and resourcing more hunters, or do they just ambiently make more stuff?
No, every hunter's post you build comes with a hunter.
Okay.
Buildings are linked to every building has a occupant who then does that role. We'll see that a bit more as we kind of go on. Oh, 1 meat extra, look at that.
I would just like to say this is basically Caesar.
Yes. A bit less so when we get to the combat, because I'd say it's more combat heavy than Caesar is.
Okay.
But the economic side of it is exactly Caesar, yes.
And the graphics, the way that the monsters are moving, it's all extremely Caesar.
Well, it's just isometric graphics of the late 90s. Because Caesar's late 90s, isn't it, basically? Or is it early 2000s?
I can't remember.
I take it
we're moving into Devon now, lads.
Cornwall, I like this bit. So Cornwall actually is a historic kingdom, and Cornish, the language/dialect, is distinct from the other dialects and languages that you would find elsewhere in the British Isles.
Yes.
Yep.
So at least I've got that right. I know that from what the Doctor tells me, this historical realism will not be sustained in our journey across England.
Absolutely not. Other than, I believe, this is where you have the final boss fight against the pig, and it is Lincolnshire, which I quite like, the pig being based in Lincolnshire with the sausages, but yeah. They are in order of difficulty here as well, rat, snake, pig, and wolf. We won't get to the wolf till right at the end, because he's a scary lad. He's basically just the wolf from Gladiators.
I've got some thoughts about the armour the wolf is wearing, but we'll get to that too.
We will. Yes, but we'll come across Duke de Puce, who's the rat, pretty soon.
I've got a follow-up question, Doctor, about, I suppose, the nature of this game more than anything else.
Yep.
And it's completely gone out of my head, so come back to me in a minute.
Excellent,
Sorry. Oh, Bowman!
While we're waiting for that, fun fact, the sprite can't tell the difference between Lancaster and Lincolnshire.
As someone who lived in Yorkshire for a while, that's problematic.
I've also been to both of these places, and I visited people who live there, and I still can't keep in my mind which was which.
I remember what I was going to ask. Do you know why England is called England, Doctor?
The land of the Angles.
Precisely. As in
Saxon.
the Anglo-Saxons. Angleland. England, if you will. So there you go.
Right, but where does Angles come from? Is it literally because it's a pointy country with a lot of sharp cliff edges?
No.
Angle.
Yeah, so the
here we go, just to interrupt you briefly. Construct a Motte and Bailey fortification and strengthen it with some towers. Then start bow production and raise a force of archers with which to eradicate the wolves that run riot here. Right, on you go.
So the Angles...
So we want a Motte and Bailey, so we start up here.
Excellent. So the Angles and the Saxons are arguably two distinct Germanic tribes which begin to populate, invade, settle, colonise the British Isles following the Roman withdrawal from Britain. So they are fundamentally two distinct, vaguely Germanic tribes or ethnic groups that conquer the British Isles over a series of decades, centuries.
Would you like to know where I got that knowledge from?
I would, Sprite, yes.
From the Warlord Chronicles.
Oh, that's very cool.
Am I going to be able to fit a barracks in here as well? Maybe not. So you'll notice, for example, I'm now going to build a Fletcher's workshop. Upon doing so, one of the peasants around the campfire transforms into a Fletcher. Matt Lloyd, he's called specifically.
They all have names!
Yeah, he'll go over there, and then he'll go to the stockpile, get some wood, take the wood back to his workshop, and then he will fletch it into an arrow, and then when he's built... Oh, you need a couple of pieces of wood. Then when he's built an arrow, he'll bring it to the armory. Weapons in the armory can then be used to create units from a barracks. So if I build a barracks, which will have to be outside... Oh, we need more wood anyway first.
You always need more wood.
Yeah. So he'll slowly fill the barracks with... As he's got a bow there, he's going to bring it to the armory and put it in, and then we can use that as long as we have one bow and one peasant. We can make one archer. And we have, at the moment, 5 peasants around the campfire.
Is the number of peasants determined by the scenario, or can you make more peasants in
you can make a
conventional
hovel.
manner?
Houses peasants. Each hovel adds 8 peasants to the population.
Excellent.
More population means you get through food faster, but it also means you raise more revenue from taxing and potentially have more to turn into troops.
I understand. So potentially you could build too many hovels, but not have enough, in this case, hunters to feed your population.
Yes. There's a number of different food sources. Meat is probably the easiest one, but it's the slowest and least reliable. The bread food chain, once you can get that set up, is the best one, but then you need to have wheat production, mills, and bakeries, and it's a lot more complex.
Okay.
But we'll build to that over time. One of the things I really like about the campaign in this is how it warms up in that way to just the mechanics and how the game works.
Yeah. I mean, I know that this is a video game to service video game style combat, but this is actually very historical, so specifically, the Saxons had a really developed bureaucracy that revolved around the notion of the thing, or the then, which was the system of sort of conscription, sort of citizenship.
Yeah.
So if you were a serf who like served your lord, or a Saxon lord in England, then 1/3 of the time, or 1/2 of the time, depending how many men there were in the land, so 1/2 of the men would work the land, and in times of conflict, the other half would go and serve, and then every 6 weeks they would rotate round.
Yeah.
So the half that were at war would go back to work the fields, and the other half would immediately go and serve in the king's army or the lord's army, depending who they were fighting and when.
Well, it's a tough balance, I get, and it's what I think this game does quite well. It gets that balance between, like, economics and war are two halves of the same thing, and you can't... It's foolish to avoid one over the other, because then either, like, yeah, you don't want to be winning battles, but then there's no food back home or anything like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one of the main reasons that like lots of conflicts in medieval Europe are won or lost is that it got to like the autumn time, and like all the peasants who were making up the bulk of your infantry decided that actually, if we keep fighting, I'm going to go home and then I'll starve to death over the winter. So I'm going to go bring in the harvest now.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the summer. Ta ta.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically no campaigning in the winter. So you notice I've built a barracks now, and I've built 3 archers from that. Confusingly, once they're built, units don't count towards your peasant cap, so we've still got a few more peasants here available. But the rate at which we can make troops is dependent on the rate of peasants.
Someone's shooting at us.
Yes, the rats' troops are up there, and they are attacking me. And I've hopefully got enough bowmen to defeat his. But it's going to be a little bit close. It's going to be too close, in fact. Shit.
Can you get the lord involved?
You don't want to. If the
he
Lord
dies,
dies,
is
you
that game over?
lose
Oh,
fully.
okay.
So, let's make an.
No, there's
fuck
wolves
me.
in the village, Doctor.
Oh,
Oh, no,
no.
it's a massacre.
It's they've massacred the peasants. The Lord is all right, but the problem is they. Oh, right, we're gonna have to get the Lord involved. I don't want to do this, but we're gonna need to because.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Yep.
Can your hunters do anything?
Yes, but they're not, and I don't know why. But you can't control hunters, they just sometimes do that. Even the Lord, you can't really control them in that way. The problem we have is they keep killing our Fletcher, and we're now unable to make arrows, which means we're unable to make bowmen, which means we're very hard to defend ourselves. I've got one bowman who I'm going to try and place up here.
That tracks, to be fair.
Yeah.
Now, this game is demonstrating something which is also poorly understood about medieval history, is that for most of medieval history, bows are terrible.
Yeah.
They're really not very good. You have to be standing very close to somebody in order to kill them. And at that range, you're kind of thinking, like, actually, if you miss with the bow or you fail to make a killing shot, which is quite likely because the bows are terrible, then the man with the sword that you're firing the bow at is probably going to close the distance and kill you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite effectively.
And that's mostly the state of affairs, and that they are kind of like light skirmishing weapons, is that you would use them to soften up or try and create gaps in a formation before you send in something like heavy cavalry, but we'll come back to that. But like, bows are pretty awful in this period until the development of like the Welsh English longbow, which I'm sure we'll get to.
There's also crossbows in this when we get to that.
Oh really?
Yep, but they're much later.
We'll talk. So we've got an understanding of viewership that as we record this series, like we collectively are not just going to like splurge everything we know about medieval warfare in the first episode. We're going to discuss the various weapons and armaments as they appear in the game.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I forced my woodman to walk a long way around because we haven't got a gatehouse installed. But if we slap one here... Shit, that doesn't connect. Well, whoops. Let's just fill that in. You'll notice I'm occasionally just depressing stuff because it's sometimes easier to build when you see stuff just flattened that way. Doesn't look as nice, but we are slowly at least now building up a bit of a supply of bows, which means we can build up a bit of a supply of archers. I'll build that there.
Is it possible, I take it when you have better walls, you can put the bowmen on the walls? And
yes, well, we can put them up in the gatehouse. We also do have the ability, if we have enough wood, to build a little platform that we can fire from. This little thing here, wooden platform. Like there's essentially a primitive form of tower.
Oh, excellent.
And that's what I intend to do, but we need a little bit more wood for that. I've let wood production kind of fall by the wayside a little bit because I got panicked and the woodsmen were killed. Our goal here is actually just to eradicate the wolves, but we need to build up, I'd say, 15 or more archers before we can competently do that.
I mean, we're not in a rush here, so take your time, Doctor.
No, it's just more about if the rat attacks again, which he did there, and he'll basically as a bit of pressure when enemies attack, they'll tend to attack on a schedule, and each attack will tend to be worse than the last.
Yep.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
So the rat will keep coming back with more and more troops. Right, now we can actually build a platform, so let's build that there. put these guys up it.
I take it like eventually there will be siege towers and such in this
Oh
game.
yeah, and there's big stone towers and all sorts. Siege towers, battering rams, mangonels and ballistae. You got a lot to look forward to.
Okay, I will reserve my discussion. I was going to talk about siege towers and like how a siege tower is basically a counter platform to the stuff that you're building. But like, we'll wait till you have siege towers and I'll discuss.
Like a lot of stuff, this is all basically just an elaborate form of rock, paper, and scissors of what beats what.
It's a shame that a lot of I was going to say a lot of RTS games boil down to that, but a lot of actual medieval combat boils down to that.
Shit.
Oh, some more wolves are coming after
Wolves!
us.
Can you manually shut that gatehouse?
Yep. It should also shut automatically, but I don't necessarily trust it to. I probably want to move these guys up onto there.
Yeah, because you want to get that wolf.
Yeah, but they can't go up onto it while the gate's closed, annoyingly.
There's a real charm to this sort of isometric view of the game.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Obviously, bowmen cannot move can't shoot while they are moving. Stronghold Crusader introduces the horse archer, and much as in real life, horse archers are absolutely broken.
Oh my god, like...
But I like that because it's at least accurate. Yeah, yes, because they're not in this game.
Super. So, basically, like, if there is one thing that medieval history teaches us, it's fear the horse archer.
Yeah. Because horse archers in this can move and fire at the same time, and it just makes them basically unkillable.
Oh, it's crazy, but like throughout history, whether you're the Scythians or the Huns or the Mongols, like if you are a people of the steppes and you can fight on horseback with bows, you're basically invincible.
Yeah. And Stronghold Crusader mimics that very well.
Yeah. So it's not even just it's like you can't really as a horse archer go toe to toe with like a mounted knight in full plate armor because like if you get up close to him he's going to kill you because he's in full plate armor and he's fundamentally invulnerable.
Yeah.
But like he'll never catch you and you can shoot his horse out from under him. Or you can wait until he's so exhausted that you and 5 of your friends can surround him and just pummel him with arrows until he dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
The level of skill required. So I was reading recently about Mongolian archers who admittedly come about 150 years or so after the period in which this game is set. So I believe that Genghis Khan unites the tribes of Mongolia in about 1206, 1207. But at that time there was recordings of like horse archers, Mongolian steppe warriors who could lean 90 degrees out of the saddle at full gallop, still control their horse and still fire an arrow in motion. So
it's
that they are,
No,
it's insane.
Absolutely not.
I'm just going to interrupt briefly to show as well. Actually, I'll wait for these Fletchers to finish a little bit more, but then I'll show the issue with peasants. So here, because we've got people accounted for with different jobs, we've only got 2 peasants kicking around here. If I create archers, we've got 3 bows, so we should be able to make 3 archers, but we create 2, those 2 peasants become archers, and we have to wait for this meter to fill up, and only when this meter fills up again do we get a new peasant. The army is counted differently to jobs, so you can basically, we can create as many bowmen as we want, up to a limit of about 1,000, I think, but only 2 at a time, because each time we have to wait for peasants to, there we go, have to wait for peasants to come back. But you can't have more employed people than you have population, so that's kind of where population comes in, but we'll see it a bit more later. Okay. We are going to hold it here for this one. It's been a longer first episode, but, got to get people warmed up. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join us next time. Oh, we'll have the outro to this episode, this mission.
I mean, the rat scouting party, those 3 guys that you pincushioned.
Well, join us next time for Somerset, I think that is. This will test my knowledge of the counties of South England, but yes. Once we're up in here, we're fine. This thing is definitely North Yorkshire. This distinctive little nubbin that goes down to York is North Yorkshire. That's
outstanding.
Yes, we'll get to that next time. Thank you very much for watching. I've been the Doctor.
I've been the Sprite.
And I, of course, have been the Bard.
And we'll hope you join us next time for some more Stronghold.